I'm sure you've heard of the movie Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. If you haven't, let me introduce you to Miles Morales, an Afro-Puerto Rican teenage Spider-Man who lives in Brooklyn, New York. In the movie, he lives in his own environment with his own circumstances and relationships. However, he sees that in other universes, there's still a version of himself that exists, which is Spider-Man. However, they may be from a different area or time period, or maybe even an entirely different species. The point is, they're all so unique in so many different ways. Now, whether you're a fan of Marvel or not, Miles is a perfect example of how when we think of ourselves in entirety, often not neglecting or leaving out any little part. We think of the serious sides of ourselves that we are when we're in a professional environment, or the silly sides of ourselves that we are when we're with friends, or maybe even the parental sides of ourselves that we are when we're around younger children. Humans are so complex that the truth is, the person you think of as yourself only exists for you. In my experience, I've always noticed that the people that seem to be least affected by this are people who are most authentic to their character. People who are themselves no matter who they're around. Not to say they don't have a filter, but they're truly authentic and genuine to their own unique character. I was always shy, and because of this, I had a stark difference in the way that I would interact with people. So much so that when I was younger and my parents heard that I rarely spoke in the classroom, they were shocked because they could never get me to shut up at home. Soon, I came to realize I wanted to be one of those people who is true and authentic to themselves. I noticed my sister, who's about 3.5 years older than me, go on her journey from quiet and shy to outgoing and approachable, starting from when she was in elementary school up until where she is now as a sophomore in college. However, I had one major issue that I had to overcome. At the time, I suffered from a severe stutter and would consistently struggle to get even one sentence out. A big reason why I'd put myself on mute outside of the house was because I was scared to talk.
Was it fun? It was bouncy.
Now, I knew that in order to gain the ability to talk, I needed to first learn how to speak smoothly and fluently in order to gain my confidence. So, my parents enrolled me in a speech therapy program dedicated to help kids overcoming their speaking troubles. My main issue was the first part of a sentence. On the very first word of the very first part, I would get stuck immediately. And the main strategy that helped for me was a method called Turtle Talk. Pretty self-explanatory. It was just talking slow and enunciating every single word very carefully. I struggled with this for years, as the only people I was comfortable practicing around were my own family. However, I didn't stop going to speech therapy, and I stayed consistent. And eventually, I began to see progress. Now, I am and always have been a baseball player. And when I was around 11 years old, I joined a new travel baseball team. On the first day, when I was getting to know my new teammates, I met one kid named Frank who seemed to have a similar issue to me. The first thing he did when he met me is stuck his hand out and he said, "What's up? I'm Frank." Now, throughout my tenure on this team, me and Frank became good friends. But Frank served as more to me than that. He served as an internal checkpoint. He let me know that I wasn't alone on this journey. In my stuttering journey, it felt like I was rounding third, getting ready to slide in at the plate, and I could hear his voice cheering me on from the dugout. Now, during those years, I was also studying Mandarin, a language which I'm now fluent in. But reinforcing these mental cues in Mandarin were and still are much more difficult, as I speak Mandarin significantly less than I do English. However, toward the end of elementary school, my habits that I'd learned became so unconscious that when I got nervous, I would naturally begin to employ turtle talk rather than having to think about all these strategies. 我从2岁开始学中文。小时候我有很多困难跟别人讲话，可是我进步了。现在我再给你们一个完整的演讲。I began shy and almost unable to speak, and after overcoming my roadblock, I'm fluently speaking to a full audience of people in 2 different languages. I know that I will have more challenges as life goes on. Everybody does. The way people gain experience and appreciation in life is through struggle. These struggles or roadblocks are unavoidable, and no matter how much we prepare or how skilled we become, we will run into them inevitably throughout life. These challenges don't define us, but instead they help us grow. The way we respond to them creates perspective, habit, and insight that's essential to the infrastructure of virtuous character. My roadblock was stuttering. It made me feel isolated and less than compared to my peers. However, I found ways around that obstacle. Of course, I didn't find a solution overnight. Even now, I'm still working on overcoming this as I change who I am based on the people around me. But the lesson I gained from overcoming this is that no roadblock is permanent, and as long as you're committed to overcoming it. This lesson applies to almost everything in life, whether it's fear of failure, self-doubt, or even external challenges. The key is always persistence. Every time there is struggle, it opens the road for us to persevere and build character by accomplishing a goal or overcoming a challenge. Don't let whatever challenge you're facing stop you, and know that you'll be stronger once you have overcome it. If I can do it, you can do it too, and you'll realize how far you've come.
Say bye-bye. Say bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.